Welcome again to Empowered Friday. I want to give a shout out and a thank you to Dr. Jacqueline King, for giving me this opportunity to every Friday spend 15, 20 minutes with you, hopefully to empower you in many ways and to change perspectives and also to form perspectives. One of the reasons that I teach is I love to hear others' perspectives. And I'm not always right, but I do have perspectives on many topics. And a lot of that just comes from living and life and academia and education. We were talking last week about COVID and vaccinations, and hopefully in some way we empowered you or you empowered a friend to get vaccinated. So I thank you for that, and I'm proud of you for that. I want you to understand and walk with me as we talk. Understand poverty and why it's so important that we have empathy and that we do things to help others, and especially those that are impoverished. There's a myth in America, and one of those myths in America is there's more Black people that fall under the poverty rate than whites. That is a myth. In fact, there's 8-point-something million whites that fall under the poverty, and there's 7-something million Blacks that fall under the poverty rate. But the media, always posture and make it seem like it's one versus the other. But think about how poverty impacts all of us, and especially the people that are impoverished. Because when there's poverty, not always, but when there's poverty, there's also a lack of education. And when you aren't educated, and everybody should be given the opportunity of education. Education, knowledge is power. Everyone should be given that opportunity. But when you don't have the education, it impacts the way you see the world, the way you make decisions. So in this vicious circle of poverty, lack of education, knowledge is power, then we understand in our communities, it's not happenstance when we see those islands, those food islands, when we see those convenience stores, and we see those liquor stores, and we see those drug stores, and we see those fast food stores. That's not happenstance. And then as you go in this vicious circle, then comes housing. Because if you're poor and if you lack knowledge, then you probably are going to live somewhere that's not desirable for most. You see the circle that all starts from poverty and lack of education. So that's why it's so critical that those of us have been given the opportunity to empower and help others, that we do that. not for accolades, not for, oh, look at me, because it's a right thing to do, to help others, and to give back and give of ourselves. And as we look at this vicious circle, that's where structural racism comes in. It's vicious. It's powerful. It's that circle of poverty, lack of knowledge, housing. Then comes, because of the lack of knowledge and poverty and housing, comes the health and wellness piece. One of the things that you're not going to do if you're in this circle is you're not going to be thinking about going to the doctor early and preventive medicine. You think about reactive medicine. You're not going to be proactive and understand the early detection and what that means. And by the way, that's a bill that will be shared this year in the House of Representatives that talks about racism in medicine. Folks, we have racism in every aspect of our lives. Every aspect. And some people don't have a chance. And then as we go through this structural racism of poverty, lack of education, housing, health and wellness, then comes that whole thing of police brutality, how people that are in that circle are treated unfairly by our legal system. And by the way, folks, ladies, independent women, survivors, got some of your songs. By the way, one of the mistakes I think we've made is we focus on presidential election, senatorial, congressional elections, mayoral elections. But we don't focus on judges, councilmen and women, state governors, attorney generals. We don't focus on those. Excuse me. And it's about time that we do. It's time that we focus, because it's what's happening and surrounding us that impact us the most. So I ask that we begin to focus and understand also this structural racism, the political arena that comes with it. There's the thing I always say is, and I like to tell you a story. Many of you might remember years ago, in Florida, there was a mass shooting. We could spend many times talking about gun laws and gun violence in America, which also goes in that vicious circle that we just talked about. But at Parkland High School, they had a mass shooting. These were high school kids who had the social courage. So I want the takeaway for you today is understanding social courage and what that meant and what that means. So here these high school kids, they make a stand. They get on social media, they unify, they go to Washington, hundreds of thousands, maybe 1 million people march on Washington. Teenage kids put this together, high school kids. They said one day we're going to not go to class around America. And one day kids around America didn't go to class to get everyone's attention. They had the social courage to speak up, to speak out sooner, quicker, faster about racism, sexism, xenophobia, homophobia, poverty, colorism. You and I have to have that social courage to speak up and speak out sooner, quicker, faster, sooner, quicker, faster, sooner, quicker, faster on these important topics. They're not going to go away, but it's up to us to effectively change. I always like to leave you with a thought. My wife and I, we have a corporate home in California, and then we have our home in Houston. And now, as I'm now 70, and boy, did I have a wonderful birthday. And thank you for those who wished me a happy birthday. But I'll never forget a thought that came into my mind. I share with you. I now look at sunsets. I now look at flowers and beauty of earth. And I now take photos too. I take photos of sunsets, many, many photos of sunsets. There was this beautiful sunset one day. And it dawned on me that what does a sunset represent? What it represents to you and I is the end of a day. When that sun sets today, on Friday, now we're into nighttime. Our Friday will never come back another day in our lives. Once that sun sets, we can only have memories of today. Not tonight, but of today. That's what a sunset means. It's the ending of a moment we'll never, ever get to relive. So if we're not going to get to relive this day, shouldn't we make the best out of it? Shouldn't we find ways of helping others? Shouldn't we find ways of empowering others? Think about that. I'm Dr. Mathew Knowles, and I look forward to seeing each and every one of you. By the way, please share with a friend. We like to share negatives. Hopefully this is positive. Please share what we're doing together here. I'll see you next week. I'm out.